And one of the things that I think was one of the proudest accomplishments we had was we brought stakeholders in when we were talking about things, not just the people who wanted it,
Right.
but the other people who could be affected by it or perceived they would be affected by it. And what we would do is bring people together and we would talk it out. And not everybody's going to be in agreement. But what we ended up learning is we could do something better than the original idea.
Right. Things you hadn't thought about, somebody will bring up.
And that's important.
And also, if you have an open and free process, and if I disagree with the outcome, but I've had an opportunity to voice my opinion, and I felt that my opinion was heard, evaluated, maybe not accepted, I feel better about it. But when you're not listened to, then you get resentful because I tried to have input here, and they wouldn't let me have the input. Like, you don't always have to be, but the average citizen, he doesn't expect his input always to change everything, but he wants it to be heard and he wants it to be, considered.
One of the things that really bothers me, and I go to the board meetings, but I also go to the work sessions. And it's very interesting. When we had work sessions when I was the board, they were always open. Not just people could come, but people could talk. It was more managed in that you couldn't go on, ad nauseum. But what I find in the work sessions is a lot of information is covered, and a lot of it is misinformation, because the people giving the information really don't know. Not because they are trying to mislead, it's that they're not experts in it. They don't know. This village has a wealth of experts, a wealth of people, and I'm not talking about people who have degrees and ad nauseum. I'm talking about real hard experience that knows what happens. What happens in a fire, what happens in a flood. What's the best type of docking facility. All sorts of
where
issues.
there's traffic bottleneck at certain times.
And you bring those people and you bring them in and you ask them for their ideas and you talk about it. And that's what work sessions are supposed to be, not just for those on the board and staff to talk about it. Because then what happens, you come into the board meeting and say, oh, well, we talked about it in a work session and therefore it's right.
It becomes a fait accompli.
And that's not open government. And what that does is then people either get up and speak, questioning it, and then are perceived as being an agitator or disagreeing with what somebody else wants to do, rather than taking it at face value where they really have some good information or they have some real questions that hadn't been thought about. And I think one of the big things that government can do is to be inclusive, give everybody the right to have a seat at the table.
Yes.
To present their ideas. That doesn't mean we're all going to agree on everything.
No.
But it means that you will get a much more informed decision-making process to go forward.
And when I was on a board, and I'm on a board now in the town, but in every community, there's always folks who follow things more closely, who get up at meetings and speak more because they've educated themselves on the issues. And, when I was a trustee here in the village, there were 4 or 5 people who, I'd wake up in the morning and I have emails from them. And, your first reaction would be like, oh, my God. But then you start reading it and you said, you know what? They make some sense. They make some points. Sometimes it was perfectly valid. But what I always felt that, and when I left the village, I felt looking back, they made me a better trustee because they made me stretch myself. They made me question myself. And, if you just think you're always right all the time and you don't grow. And, I having discourse, even sometimes if it's an argument and you disagree, you don't have, I've had a lot of, issues that I worked on in a village with people on the other side. I never take that personally. You and I have been on different sides of issues. It's not personal. You disagree with me on this. You're a citizen. You live here. You're allowed to disagree. And that's... The problems that communities, local governments get into is when they personalize it. Like, I don't like this person. And then they don't listen to anything that person says because they've got a vendetta against that person.
When I was younger, I used to teach in the graduate school at American University, as well as the undergraduate.
Down in Washington, D.C.
In Washington, D.C. And I got to tell you, I learned more teaching than I did when I was a student because you're forced to think further
Yeah.
into the different problems and examine them and look at things through other people's eyes. I teach a course now once a year for the University of Wisconsin
Really?
on docks and marinas. It's a very high level course, and we get people from all over the world coming to it. And I've been doing this for years, and it's a fascinating course. I think I know what I'm talking about. But every year when I do it, it's anywhere from 2 days to 5 days, depending on the year. I come away with 3 or 4 things that I've learned,
Yeah.
and I think I know a lot about what I'm doing. But people are always pushing, when you're teaching, pushing the envelope of trying to question things. And from that, you get something better.
Right. And you know what? You can't be afraid to say, I don't know, but I'll find out.
And you can't be afraid to say, I've made a mistake.
Exactly.
You're right. Let's see how we can make it better.
Exactly. Exactly.
And that's what we are lacking.
Yeah, I think during the Depression, Franklin Roosevelt, they asked him what he was going to do. He said, we're going to try everything. When something doesn't work, we're going to admit it frankly. We're going to move on. We're going to try something else. And that's the way. None of us have the magic bullet. And I think the problem with a lot of people who serve in office, who run in office from both parties, is they act like they have the answers to all the questions. And instead of saying, I have some knowledge, but I'm going to work on it, I want to take an input. But everybody feels like, because the world and the media has become such a gotcha that, everybody's afraid to have one little slip that they might be seen as being imperfect. But, like I say to people, we're not running for God here. We're running for seats. And, you're not supposed to know everything. But when you don't know it, say, I'll find out. But don't. What bothers me is when people, you see them and they're obviously making it up.
Absolutely.
And it's just,
and it's interesting that through the rewrite of the LWRP, which I'm active in, and a lot of other people are active in because they're really concerned. One of the things that really hit home to me, 30 years ago when we wrote it, we were concerned about development.
yeah.
Today what we're really concerned about is redevelopment, because the village, for the most part, is fully developed.
It's built out.
There are very few places where it hasn't been built out. So what's happening is you're redeveloping. And as you redevelop, you have the ability to either try and keep the quality of life or see a significant change. And I've seen some redevelopment proposals of recent date, like on Grove Street, where a 3-lot subdivision was gerrymandered to get around the regulations to create 3 lots. And I thought that was wrong. But I credit the board for trying, for vetting it and trying to find a way to work within the regulations to, make it better. But I'm a big believer when you have either a major variance or a major subdivision or anything of substance where you're changing, one of the fundamental questions that you should be asking is, what's in it for the village?
Exactly. And you know what? When you're dealing with a developer, I've worked in elevator construction and repair my whole life, so I know the field. But their motive, and it's not a bad thing, but their motive is always to get in, make money, and get out. And that is different than what the village's motive is. The village's motive is to have something that is aesthetically pleasing, that fits in with the neighborhood,
And sustainable.
And sustainable. And I think we have to work with developers and realize it's fair. You want to make money. That's part of life. You're not going to build anything unless you're going to make money.
A lot of people say when I argue against a particular approach that a developer may be taking, and I said, listen, I represent developers all over the world. That's what my business is. Okay.
Yes.
We have shown them time and time again that more is not necessarily more profitable. You may have a higher gross revenue, but you don't have a higher net income. And sometimes when you are really looking at it, smaller and more quality can give you a higher net income.
Right.
Even though the gross may be lower, the net income is higher, your return on investment is much more. And that's the key when you work with developers, is to really focus on what their needs are
Yeah.
or their desires are. But there's no, when a developer comes in to me and says they've overpaid for a piece of property because they have the right to subdivide it or change it, I keep telling them they don't have the right, they have a privilege.
Yeah.
And you have to show them, the community, what's in it for them
Yes.
in order to make it fair and reasonable. It has to be aesthetically pleasing. It can't rape the land. It shouldn't have density that's out of character. These are the types of things we need to do. That's one of the problems that we have with some of the rezoning that we're doing.
We're getting near the end, but I just wanted to ask you, what are your, do you have plans for the future to get more active in the village? And if you do, what are they?
Well, it's interesting and timely that you asked that,
Okay.
because about a couple of hours ago, I made a decision to run for mayor.
A couple hours ago today.
A couple of hours ago today.
Well, we really timed this perfectly, huh?
I will tell you.
You heard it here, folks. Late breaking news from the Tom Murphy Show.
People have been urging me for months, from all walks of life in this village, all parties, all economic stratas, asking. They said, people have come up to me whom I really do not know, people that I have not met or have socialized with, and say, I like what you have to say. You need to do more. We need to have that type of thought, as part of what we do. I see on television, I keep saying, turn the channel. But after a while, and then we've had a lot of people of what I call high stature of recent age. High stature meaning that they have been in the village for a long time. Yeah. They love the village. They've been very active.
Generationally sometimes, yeah.
And they're saying, we really need a leadership that will bring people together and not be divisive, that will have fiscal responsibility, that know how to work with development and have smart development versus just any development. So yeah, that's what I've decided to do.
Well, congratulations.
And I would hope that I'm going to seek the Democratic nomination.
Okay.
Democratic Party nomination. And I welcome everybody's support, and anybody who wants to come help me work, give me a call.
Okay, and I mean, believe me, I admire you. I know what a big undertaking it is, and my hat's off to anybody who has the nerve and the stamina to get into the ring and the arena and to say what they feel and try and move this village forward.
A lot of my very close friends said, Dan, you're nuts and out of your mind.
Well, yeah, we all know that. We knew that. This just confirms it.
And I said, there are times in life when you're faced with a crossroads.
Yes.
You either have the courage of your convictions or you're part of the problem.
Well said.
Okay. And so I'm having the courage of my convictions.
Yeah. Well, good for you. Good for you. You know what? I wish you luck, no matter what the outcome. I think that everybody, and you've done it before, but I think it's one of the greatest experiences of being an American is to run for office. And you, as you know, you'll meet people and develop new friendships and new connections. And you're a positive guy, and just take that positive attitude with you. And whatever happens, I'm sure you'll have a positive experience.
So I'll leave you with one other thought.
Okay.
My door is always open to everybody, whether you agree with me or disagree with me,
Yep.
whether there's something that I know about or something you want to impart. I have found over the years that I learn a great deal when people come, and want to talk about a specific concern. And I realize that their concern is the biggest concern to them. It may not be the biggest concern to everybody else, but it's the biggest concern to them, and you have the ability to bring it together.
And just one thing that you just sparked in me is that you always have to remember that the person who gets up at that podium, that might be the first and only time in their life they get up to address their government. So they should be treated with respect and listened to, and it's really important because
and encouraged.
And encouraged, yes.
It takes a lot for somebody to get up and speak.
It's an act of courage, exactly.
And
but listen, we have to wrap it up. I just want to congratulate you and good luck. Thanks for showing up tonight. And
appreciate it.
You heard it here first. Dan Nachez is running for mayor. We wish him luck. And until the next time, maybe we'll have a new late-breaking word here in the community. But until the next time, this is Tom Murphy saying good night, and I hope everybody has a happy, healthy summer.